Hello. Hello again. Um, from Dubai. How are you? Can't answer me. The uh, This is going to be a video about credit analysis and risk analysis, and in particular, what Standard and Poor's calls credit enhancements. When you look at debt, you look at the features of debt, you can put in the interest rates, the grace periods, debt to capital, and all that. And then you get down and you put things like the DSRA account, cash sweep, cash trap covenant. So you might have a cash trap, or you could call that a cash lockup. LLCK, AP covenant. And we want to know how much these things actually help, how much they reduce risk, and how much they cost the investors or the equity holders. Okay, I think I've done some other videos on a cash sweep. Now, as I'm kind of introducing this, what we'll do is we'll leave all of our analysis that we did for sizing the debt and using sculpting or a level repayment and so forth. And then on top of that analysis, as bankers, we're going to make a series of downside cases. So the sculpting will be here from the base case, but then we'll, excuse me, sounding bad today. The cash sweep will see a series of downside cases. What happens? And what I hope to show you, maybe it won't work, is that the cash sweep, if you simply have a lower cash flow, what the cash flow sweep does is essentially takes this area that's right now dividends and you pay it off. Now, if you just have a lower cash flow, you could have paid it off anyway. If the cash flow is just flat, a cash flow sweep doesn't do anything. But if the cash flow falls off a cliff and you've paid the dividends and then you couldn't have paid them later on, that's when the cash flow sweep can really help. Or when the cash flow is volatile, it goes up and down and up and down and up and down, and you sweep off the top. That's when the cash flow sweep really helps the credit of the credit analysis. So I'm going to try to demonstrate this. And to demonstrate this, we'll leave all of this thing, okay? We have the sizing of the debt, and then we'll say, okay, we've sized the debt, and now we're going to add some features to this, and then we'll make a separate analysis, a separate debt schedule, a separate profit and loss, and most importantly, a separate cash flow waterfall, where we start adding the features of these other things in. Okay, so I think at first, let's just make three different cash sweep scenarios. And once we make those cash sweep scenarios, why don't, well, maybe let's first put some different revenue scenarios. So then, why don't we'll leave this base case. You know what I should have done is, okay, so let's control D. Okay, do I have something else open that's slowing us down? Read PDF, generic macros, cash sweep, bullet repayment. I don't think I do. I think I'm just, well, I had the bullet repayment. What happened there? Oh, this is the one I want to close, excuse me. Okay, and let's make it a low varying varying flat revenues. Okay, so that's our second case. Now, if you, oops, see, that's what I didn't want to do. I want to keep the base case the same. Perhaps what I'm going to do is cut this. Well, no, we might want to vary the base case later on. And then this will just change to H10. Oh, come on. Oh, what a bad day to, what a bad way to start this. H10, okay. And then let's put here another one, and I'll put a sudden fall off in revenues. Okay. And then let's put a year. Let's say we go to year, I don't know, 7. 7, our famous year 7. So first thing we'll do is, and then we'll, oh, I guess we'll start with the starting point. So, you know, if we have a higher starting point in revenues, it will make a difference. We'll put another spinner box around the 7. So this we can, what happens here? It went way over here. So this is E. What happens if I just put E11? Okay, and then I better, oops, that's changed it to 75 years. So let's make it go from 0 to 20 years. All right, so we can have our fall off occur in year 7 again. And that will fine, and then the percent reduction. Okay, well, I'll put, let's say it goes down by 60%. Okay, so I don't know, fall year, what year of year, fall year, fine. Percent reduction. So we're going to have a, I'm repeating myself, but we'll have a sudden percent reduction, and I want to get a spinner box on that one too. It's going to be a pain because we're going to have to put this somewhere else. Maybe I'll put it right here. And where should we put our percentage reduction? I don't know if I have any space to put it really. Oh, this is a big decision. This is a very big decision. I'll put it all the way over here somewhere. Okay. So this is going to be our 60. And we'll, this time I guess I'll go and do our normal sheet to sheet analysis. Okay. I'll go over here and click on the 60. Okay. And now, oops. Oh, this is the fall year still. Okay, and then this is going to be this one. Divided by 100. And I better allow it to go from 0 to 100. Okay. So that's a second way. Why do I better be careful. This one, I don't want an incremental change of 5, do I? You've so far seen in this video a lot of boring spinner boxes. Okay, but again, okay, I hope that you understand that. So let's, do we have a growth rate? We have a growth rate here. So if, you know, this number year is less than or equal to, how about less than this one? then we'll take this last one and multiply it by 1 plus the growth rate. Otherwise, we'll just take this last one. How about that? And we'll just have a sudden fall off, so we better be careful. This one times, so I'm going to say, where's my if statement? Oh, no. I'll do it again. If this year equals, so I changed it, so that wasn't completely a waste. Then this times 1 plus the growth rate. Okay. Otherwise, if it is that year, let's just take this one and multiply it by the percent reduction. This should have not been like this. Is not equal to, great. Yeah, times 1 minus the percent reduction, I think, right? So if you press Shift Control R, now if we go to year, let's say we go to year 5, okay, and then, oops, in year 6 we have this kind of sudden fall off, and we can see what kind of percent reduction we can live with. And now, with the way we're going to do this, the way I can't even talk, we'll see how the cash sweep helps the bank in these cases. So in this case, where we just kind of reduce the revenues, we'll see how much the revenues can decline with a cash flow sweep and without a cash flow sweep. And we'll do the same sort of analysis with a lockup. And then we'll have, how about we'll put revenue volatility. Now, here's, of course, the problem is that, of course, why did I say of course? I forgot what I was going to say. All right. If you have, we're going to put some volatility in, and I don't know what I was going to say just now, but the volatility could affect you in different ways. Really, what's happened in a lot of cases is we've had these sudden reductions. That you don't really model with the volatility, but we want to, for the cash sweep, we want to get it when it goes up and when it goes down. So I'm going to put a volatility percent. So let's, maybe we'll do the same thing here. We'll take this one. Okay, and we'll go over here and be able to put a different volatility percent. Now there are it's very rare for me to think of cases where the volatility and the Monte Carlo simulation actually helps you in doing an analysis. But I think this might be one of the rare cases, okay, because when we go up, we want to, you know, the more volatile it is, the more the cash sweep helps. So the first thing we did is, oops, see, I didn't fix this one yet. We're going to look at, we can apply the volatility against different different base kind of numbers. And I hope that I don't think I changed this to, I did change that to 12, didn't I? So let's say we have 15% volatility, annual volatility. Now, you can get all fancy and go buy that silly at-risk program or something else, but what you really can do is just simply say, well, let's take the last number times plus the last number times the volatility percentage times NORM SIMV, and we put a random number in there, and that's it. And press Shift Control R, and then if you want to kind of see what's happening, you press F11, and then go to the home page. Let's look at the formulas. You know, what I might do is, put this. I'm actually going to put this one in our Monte Carlo page as well. I haven't shown you. So we have all these different volatilities now. If there's a cash flow sweep, the idea is you take the cash flow off the top so you can pay it off later here. So the higher the volatility, the higher the sweep has an effect. Now if we make the volatility, let's make it really high. Let's make it, I don't know, 25%. Okay, and then now you can see we have a bigger effect of taking this off so we can protect ourselves later. Again, if we recalculate it now, that's what a Monte Carlo simulation will do. It'll just recalculate a whole bunch of times, okay? So we'll, for once, use a Monte Carlo simulation. Maybe we'll even move this, move this chart to that one, and we'll rename that sheet to, it's called model with functions right now. Okay. I don't know, I think there are little nicer little ways to make the graphs here, probably, but okay. And so this is going to be our cash sweep. Oh, why don't I use the thing? Alt H O R. That's better than that, isn't it? Cash sweep and trap. Okay. And by the way, I think I still have one from the very first thing we did. Did we do some kind of data table? You know, let's take those horrible data tables out of here. We did that maximum gearing analysis and all that. In fact, let's take that whole thing out. Let's take this whole thing out. Let's take this whole thing out. Okay. Okay, and now we can see what happens. Okay, and then what we'll do is, as usual, we'll put a code number in here. EBITDA code. There's an EBITDA code. And let's just make it 1. And then we'll, let's say, index tab, of course. This one. Now, at first, let's just leave the, press F4, and we'll Shift Control R. Now let's press Shift Control C so we get our right colors. We'll leave this all there, okay? And now this debt sizing analysis here, I should really put debt size from base case cash flows, okay? So we are going to leave all of that in and then kind of redo the analysis. And when we redo the analysis, the first thing we're going to do is go and get, instead of just the base case this time, now we're going to get this alternative case. And perhaps what we really should do is, excuse me for going up and down, but we should go and insert a drop down box and get a different kind of scenario. Okay, so we'll get the various different scenarios. Is this all in one? It looks like it's all in one thing. Of course, go back to the sheet and click on the EBITDA code, and we click on this one, and we get the base case. Okay, and then if we want to copy this to the top, we'll do it here. Okay, and so that's our base case, and then we'll have another drop-down box for trying different cash flow sweeps. I suppose I should do. I think I'm on my way with that, because we're going to think about this and make some cash flow sweeps with different formulas. And the thing you don't want to do is make a formula that says a cash flow sweep take a low DSCR, because then all you're doing is just replicating the cash lockup covenant. You're not doing anything. You want to get those high cash flows, but you can understand if you're a banker, I hope you can understand the client not wanting you to take those high cash flows, especially when the debt is at a reasonably low level. Excuse me, I had to take a little coffee. So how do we do that? Well, it's going to be a little tricky. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. Stock market went up again. Okay, so there's our CapEx. Shift Control R. Of course, I hate this stupid thing. Shit. It's good I did that in a way, because when you have these range names, they can really screw you up, can't they? Okay. Shift Control R now, because it just stole a range name from you. Okay, I suppose we should redo the debt and the equity. So we put the debt here. We did all our little analysis, and we said, okay, we're gonna either have a constraint based on the gearing or the DSCR, and then our closing balance of our debt starts here, and we make the opening balance equal to the closing balance, and then the repayment, we put the repayment in here, and the repayment comes from all the analysis we did up here. Okay, so that's fixed. That's the whole idea. That's fixed, and that's fixed using the base case. Now, when you model a cash flow sweep, notice what I did is I kind of cheated. I put all the things down here, but you're going to see how much cash flow you have and get a net cash flow before the sweep, and then do some kind of formula for the cash flow sweep, and then get the cash flow after the sweep. You could even put a less cash flow trap, and that's when we have a dividend covenant, and then we have net cash, and then we have add cash released from the trap. So we should really put that down, and then we can have net cash flow. So we really need to understand to the equity holders. Okay, this is kind of where the action is on a cash flow waterfall. Okay, and so the profit and loss, they only need, again, the only reason we need the profit and loss is because of the taxes, but we this time take the EBITDA that could be our volatile EBITDA or something else, and then we'll take away the depreciation, and then we'll get the EBIT. Oops. Okay, and this time interest expense comes from here. So I suppose we might as well fill it out. I haven't filled out the cash flow sweep yet, but the closing, it'll be the opening balance minus the regular old repayment minus the cash flow sweep. Let's be nice and lazy, and we've already got the interest rate, so all of this is really pretty easy to calculate. Shift Control P maybe, and multiply this by the opening balance, and then we've got the interest expense, and our EBT is the difference. Now I think this time, I'm going to do something that never ever should be done. But I'm going to make the taxes. Let's put the tax rate here first. Oh, this hurts to do almost. Instead of making a... okay, forget it. Let's make it for once NOL calculation. So we put NOL balance. We add put the opening balance, add the losses less the NOL used. This really is not NOL, it's really the whatever, the EBIT, and then we put a closing balance. Okay, and then taxes. I'll leave that where it says minimum 0, so the opening balance is equal to the closing balance. The reason this is important, and then we have a maximum of a minus of the EBIT or 0 to add this, and the NOL is the minimum of the EBIT, which is the maximum of this, or 0, or the opening balance. Okay, and then the closing balance is the opening balance plus the loss minus the used, and then redone that. Let's put our adjusted EBT. For the NOL, that's going to be the EBT we start with, plus the, so if it's negative, we add back the losses minus the amount we use. And then we take this one and multiply it by our tax rate. So there we go, and we can put our net income, I guess. Okay, just in case we have a balance sheet that we need to do. How about if I do the balance sheet, I'll make a deal. I'm not going to waste your time. I'll just, EBIT minus the taxes. I will just, I'll do that off the video. So let's take the EBITDA again and now do the crucial cash flow statement. Now we have the taxes paid, so we have the CFADS. Now the reason I did this here was because all of the sculpting and all that would use the taxes, and I would have to adjust all that function I made, and I'm not going to do that. Excuse me. And now the scheduled repayment, that's from all of our analysis that we did above. I think what I just said was pretty unclear, by the way. And then interest expense, we can take it just from here, I suppose. I think some of these silly things will have some stupid rule about this. Cash flow minus this minus that. Uh-oh, that's still positive. And then we put in our cash flow sweep. And I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to add some other ones. And let's put a sweep code, just like we did the other one. Suppose it's not a real accident that this kind of thing has more. How about we'll put no sweep as our last one. Now, you know, There, I'm going to try to put I said before, all sorts of different formulas in here. So I haven't thought about how to do that right yet. But, and then we'll have the one we actually use, which is an index of all of our scenarios using the sweep code, just like we do all of the other things. Okay, Shift Control P, and why don't we make another box? Okay, I'm being lazy and not turning off the video when I should be, probably, because this is really not that much related to the cash flow sweep, showing you how to do these silly little boxes. And then again, go to a different sheet, back to this sheet, click on our code number. Okay. You know, I watched somebody else do it. Oh no, see, that was pretty stupid. I wanted to show you that this is more interesting. Okay. They did it so fast when they were typing. This other video I watched for like 1 minute. I don't know how you'd ever watch a video like these things. Okay, and so I guess we can copy this and put this somewhere up here so we can try. That's really the objective of seeing how the cash flow sweep works together with perhaps different revenue cases. Maybe we'll make a graph and stuff down here with all that. Okay, so right now this is the line. This is the okay, I'm using this Shift Control 7 a lot these days. I kind of discovered it not so long ago. Okay, so let's put our cash sweep percentage here. And this time we have no sweep, so we take our last line in the cash flow waterfall and press the F4. Now we have to be really careful with this. First of all, if this is negative, I don't think we want to sweep a negative cash. So we put a maximum around this. And then for the minimum, we can't only take the opening balance of the debt. We have to take the opening balance and subtract any amount that's already been paid above us in the cash flow waterfall. Okay, so that's what we do here. And then we have the cash flow after the sweep. Okay, so, this says 75%. What did I not take? That was pretty bad. Okay, so here we're taking 75% of the cash sweep. If we have no sweep, we take 0. If we have 100% cash flow sweep, we have all of the cash flow. Okay, so that's kind of how it works. And then we can have, this is the cash flow after the sweep, and then we can model our cash flow trap. Might as well do that now. To do that, we need to first put in our CFADS and then our debt service, and we'll just use the scheduled debt service, not the debt service including the sweep. Oh, this is supposed to be a graph. Okay. Excuse me for this. Okay. And we can get our DSCI. And we better do a little test. As long as the debt service is greater than some small number, then we'll take the cash flow and divide it by the debt service, and we get a number below 1, which is bad, which is wrong. 30 and 24. Okay. All right, and then we can put our covenant. Now, unlike the cash flow sweep, when we have a covenant, I don't think there's much, fancy way to do that kind of stuff. It's just the DSCR. Let's put 1.2. Sometimes people might do it that high. It's almost the target. As soon as you're below the target, you're not allowed to pay the dividends. So we'll put our cash trap in here. Alright. Here we go. Now, when you put the cash trap in here, I think we should put a little thing just below this to say, here's the covenant. And let's make a silly covenant. I don't know, I'm just trying to think why we must be running on some kind of different scenario. So let's say that instead of base case for sculpting, we have fallen revenues. And let's make our revenues even lower. Remember this, I think what I should have done is, I didn't mean to do that, is how about we move this, and we're going to put a few of our little things here. So our fallen revenues. Oops, one up here. I don't know where to put this. I'm not. Okay. So if we put a fallen revenues here, now we're way below our covenant. We're so far above we don't have any cash flow to sweep. So let's make it so that, how about we'll put no cash sweep in first, and then we have just a little bit, maybe a little bit more. Okay, and when we do that, our DSCR is 1.09, so we have a little bit of cash flow, but we violated the covenant. So I put covenant violation, and if we take this one, if this one is less than, and if you're a banker, you put less than or equals. Okay, so we have a covenant violation. If we have a covenant violation, we take the cash flow that we had just before the sweep and multiply it by that, because we'll do this each year. Okay, and then now we might have some cash released. So especially with our volatile case. Now if you do this, just underneath the debt schedule, you can add another 4 or 5 lines for our cash lockup account. Now, people do really fancy things with this. If you're in a cash lockup for a couple of years, sometimes then they sweep away their cash flow and take that money and pay it, use it as a reduction in debt. Maybe we should even put that in, but let's put that in a few minutes. So we'll add cash trapped, and then put less cash released. And then we'll put closing balance. And just so you know, we should really put an interest income rate. And then if we did do that, by the way, and then we put in interest income amount. Now, interest income, we don't have to put amount. This here, I should re-emphasize something. This part of the model is for structuring. This part of the model is for risk analysis. You need to understand the difference between this part, which sizes the debt, and this part, which evaluates the debt. You know, you could put a debt service reserve account up at the top here, and that you wouldn't put anything like, oh, go get the money if we don't have enough, go pay it back to top it up. All the top-ups and all that would be down here. You do the structuring is one part of the model, and the risk analysis is a second part of the model. Okay, so that's really maybe one of the real key things about this whole exercise. Now this one, as usual, we go down to the cash flow statement to get our numbers. Now the cash released, we could say, well, look, if we have some extra cash, and this is true, this is false, so we put equal not the covenant, times the amount of cash flow we have up here. But of course, we have to put the minimum of that or the opening balance of the debt. So just like all the rest of this, this is our famous rule where everything comes from upstairs. All of these accounts here do not come, all of the numbers come from the cash flow statement, and all the complicated calculations, which are not very complicated, come from the cash flow statement. Okay, we always link it up, and we have to kind of write down the statements together. And then our net cash flow to equity is our cash flow after the sweep minus the sweep plus the amount we release. And then we're finished, and our dividends are just the very end of it. And we can put equity cash flow as we get our 800 in our pocket. And we better take away this one, so we could have put a minus on that one too. So in this case we had a cash trap, so we don't get any dividends. Poor us. I'll call this equity cash flow. You can see that obviously these kind of covenants hurt the equity holders, they help the debt holders, and so on and so forth. Now, it's possible that the cash flow is even less. Now this cash flow trap isn't, we really don't trap a negative cash flow, do we? So this should be, we should have put a maximum of this, or 0 here. Okay, so, and if we have, and I'm going to put net cash flow after the trap. So if we really want to do some risk analysis, then we add a few lines, and now we're going to have to do, well, I think what's helpful to do is then we put a default, add the default on debt, unless the repayment of the default. And those are key in our little analysis. Some people will say, oh, don't ever show those bankers that you could ever show a default, but I think it's a key thing to do. I want to know at which point we default, at which point we're able to pay back the default, when we can pay back the default, if we can ever pay back the default, and then we can put net cash flow to equity at the very end. You know, to do that, it's almost like this kind of thing we did, where we did a debt schedule. In the old days, I used to try to incorporate this default inside the debt schedule, and I always had big problems. So I put a default on debt just below here, and just like we put before, we put an opening balance, we add the default, and we put the repayments of default, and then we put a closing balance, and finally interest. Now, there would be a default rate of interest. So in theory, we should put this default rate of interest in. It's a little bit tricky because the default rate of interest applies to both debt issues. And I suppose you could say, I'd be worried about a circular reference, but essentially you could say if there was a default last year, then apply the default interest rate. Perhaps we'll put that in later. Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea to put it in, just to make sure it's all very complicated and it's got a whole lot of irrelevant stuff that doesn't really matter. And so the repayment of default comes from down here. So we have our same rule. You just remember the simple rule that all of the analysis, all of the cash flow waterfall stuff comes from the cash flow statement, and then our interest can be the same interest rate multiplied by the opening balance. We'll add a default interest rate. What that will show you, somebody said in my last class, oh, these banks must love it when you default. They get a much higher interest rate. Well, if you have enough money to pay them, they might love it, okay? And so we have a cash flow. So in this case, we put a minimum, now a maximum of the minus of this or 0. So that's our default. Now I suppose you could say the maximum you could possibly default is something.
Hello, good morning.
Oh, hello. Okay, I think I'm back. I hope I am. A little delay here. So I finished with the day and I'm back making my videos. And where were we? We had the default. Now, if you have a positive cash flow up here, and the rule was to make a lot of subtotals, if that's positive, then we're going to pay back the defaulted debt. But this is really why I think it's so necessary to keep a separate account for the defaults, is that we would we go to the balance of the default, and we go to the opening balance, and we don't ever repay more than the balance of the default. And if you kind of have the default mixed in with the other loans, see how you can do that. And then you can take that last subtotal, add what it says to add, and subtract what it says to subtract. And then you can look at that default account and see how much money is left over. Now, be very careful here that when you put the interest expense, you include the interest on default. Okay, and I'm going to try something I shouldn't admit, but I really haven't put in before. And let's put a default interest rate in here. So we have the interest expenses here, which came from 161, so we've already included it there. All right. And, okay, why don't we go ahead and put a default interest in here. Here's our interest expense. We're getting up to there. And, okay. And let's just put that as 2%, a typical kind of number. So, I suppose the interest rate, we'll leave that out of the first, structuring. But when we have the interest rate here, we can put a plus. Why don't I'm gonna move the default interest rate up here. Oops, the way was it? 2%. So we should do Shift Control C. I hope I left it so it comes back to where you started. As you can look at the macro. So how about we take, if the opening balance of the default plus, if this thing is greater than 0, so just put a little bracket around that one. Then we'll add the default interest rate. Okay, and this, yes, so we put it here too. And the good news is we have no dreaded blue lines. We don't have a circular reference if we included that default interest rate. And the bad news is that I said if that is greater than 0, and at 0, let's put greater than 0.1 plus, oh, excuse me, I thought I put a multiplication here. Okay, oops. If this happened to be 1, we'll undo it. Then it would switch to our default interest. Okay. And I think I'm ready to copy this across. After we copy it across, this now, we better take this equity cash flow, of course. I suppose might as well do this. This is the graph we'll make. Okay, and on our graph this time, we'll show what our debt service is. Let's make sure we have the right debt service. So we have the scheduled debt service. Okay, let's put here scheduled debt service. And again, I think and then let's put the cash flow swept. Okay, and then we can put the cash trapped. Okay, and I'm not going to put the repayments of all this stuff in the cash trap here. Okay, we have nothing there. And then we have the repayment of the default. Now I didn't put the default itself because it's a negative number, and I didn't put the repayment of the trap, but I think this graph will be a pretty good one to show. We'll show where we take this cash flow. In this case, the debt service will exceed the cash flow, so we'll kind of see a default there, and then we'll see later when it's repaid. Okay. In fact, Okay. We've got all of these accounts here. Where are we? Okay. All right. And I use my favorite shortcut or whatever, Shift Control R. I just said that. Seems to be taking too long. Okay, if it takes much longer than that, I'm gonna switch the computer off. Why it took that long? It's just because it said my computer's low on resources or some crap like that. So right here, we're not covering our scheduled debt service. If we put let's put the base case back. Is it taking this long? Oh, shoot. Let's put a sweep of 50%. Okay. Now we can see that we have a cash flow sweep. Good. And then eventually our debt service goes to zero. All right, and I suppose if we put a varying flat revenue here, we can increase the revenue a little bit. I really am going to have to stop this video. And then we have, it looks like the cash trapped. Oh, that's because I have a 50% sweep. If I would have a 75% sweep, then I have different levels of cash trapped. And then if we keep pushing it down, we're eventually getting to the point where we can't sweep anything because we're defaulting. And in this case, I don't have enough money to repay the default. And now if we make our revenue volatility case, I have no idea, but this time we're having a sweep, then a trap, and it looks like there's no default. If perhaps if we go to our formulas and calculate the sheet, still no default, still no repayment of default. I could be going to calculate sheet. You know what I might have to do is on that volatility one, lower the cash flow so we have some more interesting kind of defaults, because we want to see just what happens if we excuse me, where are we? So revenue volatility, I think I only changed the volatility here. Let's change this to 60. Okay, so we have a lower starting point. Let's see if we get some. In this case, oh yes, we have a repayment, we have a default, and then a repayment of the default. And why don't we graph this? Okay, so I'm going to put in our period, so I'm not sure if we really. Whoops! Oh shoot, that was okay. And I mean, I guess the good thing about putting in the periods is at least you'll see this now. Oh, well, let's move this chart back to our cash flow sweep and trap. Okay. Oh crap. I'm gonna put it down here somewhere. In fact, we really maybe want to put it next to here. I'll want to get rid of all that crap at the bottom, but I'll do that later. So let's put, instead of our volatility case, let's put the base case. base case. All right. Why don't I make the graph with you? You can turn off the video if this is just too. You know, if you take my class, I'm not this boring. I promise. I promise I'm not this boring when I do that. But then we'll change the chart type. Oh, we don't even want to do that. We want to change the selected series, don't we? No, we don't want to do that either. Sorry. God. Where did my graph go now? Oh, come on. Maybe I shouldn't have done this with you. Okay. Change series type. There. Okay, let's make this one a line. And these ones will make a stacked bar. Okay, and then you might want to, stack them differently. And when you stack them differently, you have to go to that other select data thing. And do I have that? Is that it? Okay, so here we have the cash flow sweep and the cash flow trap. And if we let's put 100% cash flow sweep, then it's just higher, and we put no sweep, I guess. And then we get a lower amount, and let's put our case with the varying cash flow. Oops. I guess we just had a big default. That's not working. We can kind of see what our break even is, and we trap the cash flow here. Okay, now when it's kind of flat like this, you can almost see that the cash flow sweep, there's nothing to sweep. It's not really very exciting. It doesn't really help you. That's the whole idea. This is what I wanted to show you. However, when we have this sudden fall off in revenues, then if you do have a cash flow sweep, okay, at least we got to pay off some of our debt. And if you put this low enough, okay, what's happening here? It should be just a minute. I might have to. This cash flow isn't going down, so we have to go and check that. So why don't I check that and switch the video off? Okay, and then we'll put some different formulas, and I might do that without the video being on, because I get a little nervous that you'll think I'm an idiot when I'm doing this stuff. Okay, I put a graph of the default here and the regular, whatever, the waterfall graph here. Okay, and then if we have just varying revenues, let's just kind of do a little bit of analysis. If we keep pushing it down, eventually, okay, here we trap some cash, and then we keep going down, oops, and we have a default. And then we have another big default. So our break even is about here. Now, if we instead added a cash flow sweep, okay, and we did the same thing, and it's almost the same result. The cash flow sweep did nothing but reduce our return on equity. Let's put our equity IIR here. I hope okay, sorry about taking so long. Come on. That's great. Okay. Equity. Okay. So, uh, Shift Control P. Uh, okay. I'm not even showing the equity IRR on the kind of base case, although I suppose we could do it here. It would be this one. So, with no sweep, we get 10.4%. With a 50% sweep, it goes down to 9.8, and then keeps going down. Okay? Ooh. Oh, that was different. You know, I'm so dyslexic, I almost didn't see it. Now we put the flat revenues in. Okay. Did I? Oh, I guess that's the base case revenue. So we push it down, and it's still the same kind of thing now. So all we did here, if we just have flat revenues and we can't fall off a cliff, the cash flow sweep didn't even do anything. But now, let's fall off a cliff. Okay. And then I said, okay, in year 10, or let's put a different one in. Okay. In year 10, we completely fall off a cliff. Now, if we have 100% cash flow sweep, we have a default, but we can pay it back. If we have no cash flow sweep, we can't pay it back. And if we have no cash flow sweep, I'm keeping going up to get rid of the default with a 60% break. Look at this. I need something. Oh, here, I at least repaid it. Okay. We, uh, we need something like 110 revenues. If we switch it to a 100% cash flow sweep, then we can completely pay it off because we've used all the cash flow. Instead of leaking it out in dividends here, we've paid it all. In fact, and then we can keep going down, and we can keep going down, and keep going down, and keep going down. And I'm looking at the. You can see we can have a dramatically much lower revenue level when we fall off if we have a cash flow sweep. So it very much depends on the volatility of cash. Now, if we would have the cash flow fall off occur later, then we're trapping even more cash, and we can go so far down. Okay. And we can get, oops, all the way down to 50. Now, if we didn't have any cash flow sweep, oops, I guess it's it's not that much dramatically different. Okay, uh, so I suppose it it depends on oops, it depends on when we're starting it. Oops. So with no sweep, we get a big default, and then we get a default. Oops. Ah, that didn't help as much. Oops. Okay, I haven't done enough, but oh shit. So with 100% sweep, I thought it was just oh, with 10 we can pay it off. with no sweep, we can't pay it off, so well, whatever. You can see the kind of analysis. Now, just to finish it off, you can tell that I'm not uh, I kind of don't know the answers to some of these. Oops. Oh shit. Okay, and then if we get the equity issue, okay, and the income comes from our. We're putting. Did I even say we're putting the balance sheet together? I hope I did. And the dividends comes from this one. The closing by using balance is just that we add the equities, subtract the dividends. Okay. Shift Control R. And our net plant balance is, I put it by the profit and loss statement. The lockup reserve we have to now put on our balance sheet. Okay. And then we can press alternate equal to get this. And the debt balance, including, in addition to the debt balance, we better put the default balance. Okay. And we can put the equity balance. Add the up with alt equal, take the difference, and maybe make a test. And that's very good news that in the very first year we at least passed the test, but it's not really that good news. Although you wouldn't be surprised that I've made that mistake before. Uh-oh. See, I have a mistake here. Okay, and if we have no sweep, we're okay. Or we have 50% sweep, we have something else. So I'm glad I'm not happy we did the balance sheet. I really don't give a shit, but uh, I'm gonna stop this. No, I'm gonna balance the balance sheet, and then we're gonna put we're gonna do a little more analysis with all of this stuff. We haven't done any analysis with the Monte Carlo simulation yet, so we'll do that. Okay, I need to stop this for just a minute. Okay, I was just experimenting with this. I think I made a mistake here. If we have no sweep, we have a big default. This is the default. I made a graph of the closing balance of the default. In this particular case, if we have no sweep, we have this. If we just have flat revenues, the cash flow sweep doesn't make any difference really. Okay, now what I'm going to do is make a second video that works through all of this. I I don't know when I switched the video off, and we put we suppose we did. We have total assets and total liabilities, and our balance sheet balances. And just to review this, no, I'm not going to even review this. This is going to be our first video on the sweep, and now we're going to do a little bit of analysis on the sweep. Okay. Now, this is going to be a continuation of the cache sweep and cache trap analysis. And, you know, why I say what an idiot. What we're going to address here is the installing or implementing cache sweeps and cache traps, but as a function of ratios such as the DSCR, EBITDA, debt to EBITDA, or I haven't got the model, but I've seen an offshore wind farm, and I believe they had something, excuse me for saying this, but kind of absurd. If the wake effect was wrong, there was a cash flow sweep. If the P50, P80, or 75 was lower than is being achieved instead of the P50, there's a cash flow sweep. These are all downside scenarios. And in the downside scenario, you can either use a cash lockup account, or you could just tell them, okay, don't pay a dividend. I suppose maybe it's like a cash trap, really, if it's a downside analysis. If you're hitting the downside, you're not allowed to pay a dividend, essentially. Now, this would be like something like this. We could put a DSCR, and if the DSCR is, let's say, we better start with 0 to 1. If it's 0 or 1, we better had 100% sweep in every case. Okay, that's kind of stupid. Control D. And maybe, well, let's put a 25%. Okay, now, but when it gets to be 1.2, in the first one we'll have 100%, second one will have 75%, third one 50%, so we'll just keep those the same now, but then we'll put how about scenario 4, scenario 4, we'll put varying cache sweep, and then, and then we'll put scenario 5, varying cache sweep to scenario 6. Okay, is varying cash flow sweep 3. Now what we're going to do with these varying cash flow sweeps is okay, we'll now on this varying cash flow sweep we'll put 100%, this one we'll put 80%, this one we'll put 60%. Okay, and then now as we go up though, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6. These all stay the same, but this one will go down to 80%, 70%, 60%, 50%, okay, and this one 80, 70, 50, 30, 0, and this one 60, 30, 10, and 0. So what we could do in this case, we just do this one and Shift Control C. I hope okay. Okay, now we're going to change our analysis around, and we'll look at, all we have to do is use a lookup function, and we have to be a little bit careful that we don't have a circular reference. But these cash flow sweeps percents we have, where we multiplied it by the E85, now just underneath the debt service coverage ratio, we can put cash sweep percent. Now, I believe if we put lookup in this one, we'll probably have a circular reference because the interest is a function of the sweep, at least at the opening balance. Perhaps we won't. And then what we do is just, this is why I started with 0. We select that one, and then we select this one. Okay. Shift Control R. So in this case, we have the same sweep each time. And then just a minute. Don't if I have a circular reference, I'm not going to go completely crazy. Okay. Okay. Aha. Ah. Now what we have to do is, I guess we better put, if the debt service here is greater than 0.1, then we'll do it. And we got some, and we some, okay, all right. And so then we can look, let's look and see what kind of happens. So now as we pay the debt down, we have a lower cash flow sweep. Maybe you could argue for this. Okay, now let's put the 100% cash flow sweep. So this way, I suppose it's going down. Why is it going down? Oh, because we're paying off money with the cash flow sweep. And so if we do this one, we have less. And okay, and then okay, now if we have no cash flow sweep, oh, we have just flat revenues here. Excuse me, it's not very interesting yet. Let's put no sweep, and let's now move it to a sudden fall in revenues. And this one, without a sweep, we have a default. With 100% sweep, we're able to repay the default. It's a beautiful piece of art here, isn't it? If we had a varying cash flow sweep, we'd actually have a default. Interesting. And if we have these varying cash flow sweeps, and the problem is, the problems with this is we didn't sweep the cash flow here when we desperately needed to. If we have a simple 100% cash flow sweep, we get it all. Now, let's go up and look at a different way to do this. A different way to do this is we'll put cash flow sweep percent DSRA. And then I'm going to compute another ratio here. I'm going to compute the debt to EBITDA. And we go up and let's take the opening balance of the debt. And I suppose, I'm debating whether we should take the defaulted debt. Let's just take the regular debt, the debt balance, and divide that by the EBITDA. It's a ratio that would be a very common ratio. We could even take it by the CFADS, but why not? And then what happens is that debt to EBITDA goes down over time because the debt goes down. And let's just, I don't know. If we have the varying flat revenues and we push the revenues down, we have higher debt to EBITDA. And what you could do is say, well, whenever it's the debt to EBITDA is, let's say, above 7, we better sweep all the cash flows. But when it gets down to 6 and 5 and 4, things are getting better and we don't have to sweep it. Now, if we put a sudden fall in revenues, then the debt to EBITDA went down. The EBITDA went down, so the debt to EBITDA, of course, we'd have to sweep this, but we'd probably have close to a debt default anyway. So let's try this. Why don't I put this back to just the flat revenues? Okay. Don't worry about this equity IRR, really. You know, if we don't like that num, we can do something like that. The reason don't worry about it is obviously equity IRR is going to be very low when we do all these downside cases. Don't get confused by a base case equity IRR. That's too easy. You don't need to know that. So we could, up here, instead of having a DSCR criteria, we'll put a, now, I mean, we could somehow do both, but I'm just debt to EBITDA criteria. Now this is going to go, oh shoot. We're going to have to use a match and index, shoot. Because if it's 0, we don't want to start with 0. We want to start with something like 100. Because that's, we're always going to sweep it then. And then when it gets to be 10, we'll still always sweep. And then when it gets to be 8, maybe we'll go down a little bit. And then when it gets to be 6, maybe we go down a little more. How about 5, 4, 3, whoops, and then 0. Okay, now what we can do is where's our debt to EBITDA? So now we can, I think I'm going to do a separate one just so you can match. We'll just see which column we're using. We put equal match, go to this one, and we click on this one and then you better put -1. -1 starts at the beginning and goes down. So this is the column number of um, okay, and then we can uh, then we put an index. Okay, cache sweep, and we'll use the index for that. And we put equal index. And the index, we first take this one, and then we go up to the match. I hope that works. Okay, and that means we're sweeping 100%. In this case, it's always 100%. Because we have our 100% assumption. Now when we have a varying cash flow sweep, it did it, oh yes, so it went from 100 to 80. If we have this varying sweep, we have a different varying one and this one, okay? So we can look at using the debt to EBITDA as our cash sweep criteria instead of this one. And then we can, let's just make a little switch, deciding which one to take, okay? Okay. Apply DSCR criteria. And let's just enter that as a true. And why don't we make a little okay. And now when we do this one, we go to format control and we go to a different one, to this one, and we put the true. Okay. And we push this up. Now as I'm doing this, now apply debt to EBITDA criteria. And we just put equal not this, okay? Is that okay? So we can either do this or that, Shift Control C, okay? And then I don't know, we really didn't have to do that other false. That was kind of a little bit of a gimmick. And we put let's go and get that true or false. So the first one, so if this is true, then we're going to take the DSCR, otherwise it'll take this one. Okay. Excuse me for wasting time on the gimmicks with you. And then we can put okay, and we can copy this. And where's our DSCR criteria? Where in the hell? Okay. Okay. so if it's the DSCR criteria, I hope we put if this is true, then we go to DSCR. Okay, just Control R, and then we okay, 209. So instead of 209, it's okay. Okay, and we don't need this anymore. Okay, and now let's do just a tiny bit of analysis of this. Oh, come on. Okay. Now, if it's the... Okay, let's get our worst case kind of thing in here with the sudden fall in revenues. If we have the DSCR criteria... Oh, shit. I thought we weren't going to have a circular reference. Oh, shit. Okay. And now, oh, crap. Let's, why? I thought we were just safe when we did this. Did we have to put it up here? Okay, maybe that's... Okay, well, obviously I'm gonna turn off the damn machine, the video, and I'm gonna uh, fix that circular reference. Okay, my error was using the ending balance instead of the beginning balance. Now, if we click on the DSCR criteria in this particular scenario, we get a debt default. If we use the debt to EBITDA, we capture more of the debt right at the beginning, and we don't get a debt default. Now, I wonder really how much of a difference it makes. In this case, we still have a debt default, and if we even if we go up to 100%, we still have a debt default. Let's let's go up. And if we have a, perhaps let's, oops, then we still have a default. Oh, I must have varied it by 2, huh? Why I did that, God only knows. Okay, then huh. Oh, this if it's 100% cash fleet, of course it doesn't matter. It's a varying cash fleet. This is what I just showed you. We don't have a default if it's a debt to EBITDA. We do if it does. Now, let's put it back to instead of a sudden fall in revenues, a flat revenue. And then if it's the DSCR criteria, we get 9 point. Yeah, this is the debt to EBITDA. You can see that the cash sweep is going down over time. If it's this one, actually the DSCR gives you a little bit higher, but you can kind of see the difference. It's this one's collecting it right at the beginning is when you really want to, and the other one isn't. So I think what I'm going to do right now is just save this file. And when I started to talk about this, I said this is going to be a file about uh, I said it's going to be a file about analyzing it, and I didn't analyze it. We're going to analyze it in the next one. Okay, I'm getting sick of this. Okay, so I'll leave this one called Cash Sweep and Covenant Analysis and stop the video.